today, so we're going to keep moving quite swiftly. If you've got any questions or questions during the session, if you pop your light on as per usual, and we'll make a speaking order. I'll just hand over to Phil to open with the karakia.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia mataratara ki tai, ehi aki ana te atukura, hei tio, hei huka, hei hauhu, tihe, mauri ora.
Thank you, Phil. And online we have Councillor Nicol, and in the room we have Chair Ma, Councillor Noel, Councillor Gary, Councillor Keith, Councillor Ben, Robbie, Mikhail, Gary, Chris and Liz. Awesome. And do we have any apologies? Awesome. Okay. Excellent. We'll get into it in just a moment. But yeah, just first up, I know there's lots of interest in this topic. So throughout our discussion today, we'll be making notes of those areas of extreme interest, and we'll have a parking lot. And these ideas and topics will form the basis of agendas moving forward. So just remember, today is just a starting point. It's a general induction, so we're not going to go deep diving into lots of things. We'll keep it pretty high level today because we have a very tight schedule. So this session will go until 12. Then we'll have a break for lunch, and then the afternoon will kick off at 12:30. Alrighty. Yeah, just also, before I hand over to Phil, just wanted to mention yesterday we had the first RTC session that Liz chaired. It was fantastic. But Liz, did you want to add any comments about yesterday?
Look, just to say that I guess all of the delegates from around the region are highly engaged on subjects, in particular freight and tahuia were two of the common themes that ran through, but all really, really engaged on regional transport, and yeah, looking forward to our next meeting, which is going to be early March.
Fantastic. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, and I noted as well there was quite a few of our councillors listening online as well, which is really good because there were some fantastic presentations yesterday that came from NZTA and Kiwi Rail too. Right, over to you, Phil. Yeah, so we've got staff in the room.
Yeah, so maybe just before we get into the detail, it might be worth asking my managers to just introduce themselves to you so that you have a sense of how the work is led within the directorate.
No reason. Would staff like to come and sit at the table, or? Yep, we've got enough chairs, Vincent. You need to stay there? Yeah, thought so. Did you want to permanently sit there, or why don't you introduce yourselves and then you grab your stuff, or? Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Trudy. You can start. Yeah.
Morena committee members. My name's Trudy Knight. I'm the Public Transport Manager here at Council. I'm overseeing the customer focus experience, the contract and insights, so the procurement of our bus contracts, etc., and all the data insights that we provide through the committees, as well working with the operators and monitoring performance and various other aspects of the contracts on the ground. So I look forward to working with you all going forward. Thank you.
programs. I'm new to council. This is my second week, and the vacancy came up with the resignation of Ryan Skerritt, who was the manager of programs. And I'm in a temporary role here as the new structure in the organisation is set up, and I'm the manager of strategy and delivery. So we're at preparing the regional land transport plan. Sorry, is that better? Yep. Yep, I can hear that. That's better. Preparing the regional land transport plan, regional public transport plan, and making submissions on behalf of government, and I guess taking the other end of the data and insights provided by Trudy's team as to shaping them and how they need to inform forward work programs for the regional council.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Could I just ask what your previous background prior to this?
So started life actually as a land use planner, and worked for a good 20 years in RMA and town planner by background. Then I moved to the New Zealand Transport Agency for 9 years when I worked in planning and investment for the agency, and also retrained, did some engineering studies, and moved into regional council in transport and urban strategy at Bay of Plenty for a couple of years. And then I've just come from Otago Regional Council, where I was manager of transport, which encompassed the planning, transport planning and the operations. So that was a pretty big role there. And a good comparator council. We always we had good working relationships with the likes of Waikato, but we're very similar in terms of sort of the networks that we have and the size of our population. And so we always sort of, and we're we're serviced with our NZTA connections as the mid-sized councils, but particularly Waikato, Bay of Plenty and Otago.
Kia ora, Madam Chair and council members. I'm Vincent Quall. I'm the team leader for contract and inside for public transport operations. My team report to Trudy, and we look after all the day-to-day contract management for PT activities, as well as all the procurement, including the upcoming bus contract renewal. And my team also look after all the data and monitoring and network performance for public transport.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so today our intention, based on the level of interest and based on the different levels of understanding of transport within the regional council, is to take you through a range of things that may be of interest. Some may be of more interest to some than others, and vice versa. And then to have some time at the end to have a discussion about the priorities and the opportunities, and pick up that parking lot to think about what you want to focus on in the next 3 years within the new WRC Transport Committee. So just to give you a high-level insight to start with, over the next 3 years, there is a significant programme of work for transport and some significant decisions to make over the next 6 months, 9 months and 18 months. As a result of those things, there are new bus networks that will launch in 2027 and 2028, potentially a new brand as part of those new contracts, and some programs of work related to our customer experience and the transformation of our interaction with customers, alongside the initiation and launch of national ticketing system for this region in the context of the country. You are aware of our new committee structure. Yesterday, as has been mentioned, we had the first Regional Transport Committee, which as a mandatory committee reports directly to the council. Beneath that, we will have a public transport subcommittee, which will focus on the delivery and the achievement of our obligation to engage with councils constantly around their aspirations for public transport in their districts and the city, and to use that channel to engage with them around their customers' experience and also their leadership around the review of things like the Regional Public Transport Plan over the next 3 years. Beneath the Regional Council, we have the new Transport Committee, and as has again already been mentioned, that committee has a function of discussing the Regional Council's vision for all of these aspects of transport, to determine our position in terms of the multiple work streams that traditionally have gone through our external committees, but to go to those committees with a perspective and a direction that is clearer and understood up front. So the committee's work will be busy over the first 3 years. That meeting, the first meeting of that committee is likely to be in the second half of February, ahead of the first RTC meeting in early March. Those are all dates that will come to you in the council pack as part of the calendar for 2026 at your December meeting. The way that we operate is under all of the legislation that the organisation has, but also specifically for us, we have the Land Transport Management Act, which has several statements in there that set out our role. So firstly, a Regional Transport Committee must be formed, and it has a specific representation, including NZTA as a voting member and some optional non-voting members. That committee must prepare a 6-year RLTP on behalf of the region, consistent, and it by law has to be consistent with the government policy statement on land transport. That document prepared by the mandatory committee comes to Regional Council for final approval before being submitted to NZTA, and they then use all of the regional land transport plans to prepare a national land transport plan and allocate funding from government via the GPS. The question came up yesterday about why is that important to local councils, and the answer was that local councils' transport programs, including maintenance and all aspects of their improvement work, has to be included in the regional land transport plan, and where required has to be prioritised in order for the regional bid for transport funding to all be made in one document via the RLTP. So we do have a really important function and responsibility there to support the application of funding for all of the districts in the city across our region, and that's part of the reason that process is so comprehensive. In addition, via that Act, the Regional Council is also the public transport authority, and it has an obligation to plan, procure and operate public transport services in the region. In addition, the Regional Council specifically is given the task of preparing and approving a regional public transport plan. And you've used your committees, these subcommittees and others, to help you prepare that previously, but that's a decision of the Regional Council. There are also many non-statutory activities that we undertake. So here are some of them. We'll go through bits of those along the way, but it's just a range of other responsibilities that we have that are non-statutory. Are there any questions on those areas before we move on to the regional content?
Chris
Yeah,
Hughes.
thanks, Madam Chair. Phil, I understood with the Regional Council Transport Committee that we were going to be having another committee that was dedicated to Hamilton City, and that would be constituted of representatives from the Hamilton City Council and members of our Transport Committee. Is that not happening?
No, so I believe that will be the PT subcommittee where Hamilton City will get extra representation. So they will have 2 members on that committee when every other TA will have 1. That is my understanding.
Yeah, that's different to what I understood we were doing. Hamilton City is over 80% of our budget. It's major. And I discussed last meeting when we had this conversation about the importance of getting Hamilton City engaged so we can have some input into what they're doing to the city to make our bus service more efficient. And if we don't have a committee that we're feeding into that, and vice versa feeding back to us, I just don't see how we're going to get there. I don't see two people being represented on the Regional Transport Committee is going to do that. It's just, it's irrelevant to them. It's a Hamilton City centric issue.
Yeah, I in the past we have had through the PT Future Proof PT subcommittee, we had quite a few discussions about lining up LTPs with Hamilton City, which came a long way from not lining up LTPs. And each trinium we've tried something different to try and get that alignment between the two councils, given the fact that there is so much PT within Hamilton City. Bearing in mind, we also have 4 councillors around this table from Hamilton City, and there's nothing stopping us from meeting with Hamilton City like we used to do last trinium and making that connection there as well.
Sorry, Angela, I think it needs a much greater focus than just having a general discussion around what we did last time. That covered a wide range of things, you know, integrated catchment, what we're doing. This is far more important if we're going to get this transport right. Otherwise, the city's going down one tangent, we're going down another, near the twain will meet.
So the mechanism that's been created to enable that to occur is via the metrospatial plan, which is the detailed work around the delivery of that integration going through to FPIC. So the terms of reference for FPIC pick up the oversight of the MSP delivery. In addition, the terms of reference, I think for FPIC, but also for the PT subcommittee, talk about a member of that committee becoming a member of FPIC as a non-voting, so that they can see that conversation come together. In addition, the agenda for that PT subcommittee is intended to be set up in a structured way so that there can be conversations about national policy, NZTA changes and other things, and then a conversation about regional bus networks, and then a specific conversation about the urban area, so that we can get into that detailed conversation at that subcommittee. For those that hasn't met yet as a committee, to have that conversation, but that's the intention.
Just don't feel it hasn't worked in the past. Just don't think there's enough focus. Anyway,
Yeah, maybe we can take it offline, Chris, and get some more thinking around that one. Cool. I'll go to Jen online and then Noel.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be in to see you in person later. I'm totally with you on that, Chris. I think the elected members from the city, especially, meet up and figure out what we want to do governance-wise in this space. So really keen to pursue that and take it offline, as Angela says. The other question I had from that previous slide, Phil, was the RPTP, Regional Public Transport Plan. Since it is on your slide saying prepared by Regional Council, and now we have this internal committee, as opposed to the Regional Transport Committee, and by function, its PT subcommittee would be the one that does a lot of the work. How are you seeing that work together so that the people who are ultimately hopefully having a vision for public transport and funding that ultimately through our regional rating, that's us, versus the voices we all want to get from the region in the public transport subcommittee, how do you think that would be the best way to work together? Because I'm thinking the schedule of how we meet and how you present that will be quite critical to making sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yes, it will. So the calendar intentionally has them 6 weeks apart from each other. And the aim is to bring things to the WRC Transport Committee before they go on to the external committees. And the aim is that you as an all of council committee have those conversations and set that direction that then becomes our position in terms of that conversation with our partners. And,
awesome.
and the aim is for that to be done in a comprehensive way so that you are guiding the way along the route in terms of rather than just receiving the final document, which is what has happened previously.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, thanks.
Liz, did you want to weigh in on that? No? Okay, cool. Noel.
Thank you. I understand what Chris is trying to seek, but having been involved some years ago now with the public transport, it's the personalities that get in the way. And so the right people need to be around the table. And we must also remember that the Public Transport Committee, a lot of services start and finish in Hamilton. And so it's not Hamilton-centric. Whilst Hamilton might be the centre of the world for most people in public transport, the reality is the districts contribute to the cost and also to the timetable. So I don't have a problem with there being some focus on Hamilton and their needs, but it is an integrated system, just like the catchment committees. It's a system for all, not Hamilton alone. And I accept that there's 80% within the city, but there's a good 20% that isn't. And that's what we must keep a focus on. So if it means Hamilton, whether it's massaging egos or actual real need, then that's fine. We can consider something for Hamilton. But my previous experience, it was about massaging egos rather than reality. So hopefully the times have changed and people have got the right intentions. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Yep, as always. Right,
Okay.
yeah, well, let's move on because we've got lots to get through.
So just to keep us moving, wanted to give you some insight at a regional transport context, because the Regional Transport Committee is operating at this level. Documents like the Regional Land Transport Plan operate at this regional and inter-regional level. So you will know all of this, but just putting it out there, our population is growing. We're the fourth largest regional economy, the fourth largest population. We have the fourth largest city and the fourth largest public transport network. You know that Waikato is the heart of the Upper North Island, and you already know that our strategic road and rail corridors across our region connect our productive centres and all of our activity to the ports, inland and external, within our region and elsewhere. We know that we have airports, one of which is now international, and you probably will know that the metropolitan spatial area is where 90% of that future growth is due to occur. And that's the area bounded by Whatawhata, Ngaruawahia, Morrinsville, Te Awamutu and Cambridge, just to give you an insight. Now, we've got some pages from the Regional Land Transport Plan just to share with you, but that shows the role and the function of those strategic networks across the region, as well as the strategic corridors in Hamilton City, the freight volumes for the region that comes from the Regional Land Transport Plan, and then some of the statements, the highlights that are within the Regional Land Transport Plan that describe some of the perspectives on these 6 topics for the region. So don't plan to dwell on that unless there are questions, but that's the context in which we're operating as a regional transport.
The future of the Mercer airfield, there's some serious aspirations up there at the northern end of our region. So, yeah, don't forget that.
Okay. There are no questions on that.
No,
I'll just
keep moving.
yeah, just give you some insight then into some of the visions and the objectives that are in the documents that we have. So firstly, you will be aware of the government policy statement on land transport, which is issued every 3 years as a 10-year statement. The priorities that are identified in that report nationally for 24 to 27 are economic growth and productivity, increased maintenance and resilience, improved safety and value for money. And those lead to the way that funding is allocated to achieve those outcomes across all of the work that we do and all of the councils do and NZTA does. From that, NZTA has some priorities, and they are to deliver on the GPS, enable capacity for growth in the right place at the right time, shaping urban form and growing productivity, enhancing inclusive access and improving the use of technology. Those are worth knowing, because those are how NZTA will allocate the funding to the things that we seek as a region. Our regional public transport plan, in its first couple of paragraphs, talks about the vision of the regional council as wanting to achieve a step change in the public transport network and system over the next 30 years, delivering a system that builds on existing services, supporting accessibility in good urban form, providing a larger proportion of the population with a viable alternative to the car, being sustainable and affordable, and contributing to meeting our emission reduction targets. That's the first couple of paragraphs of the Regional Public Transport Plan. The Regional Land Transport Plan has a vision of an integrated, safe and resilient low-carbon transport system that delivers on the well-beings of our diverse Waikato communities. And it has 5 strategic objectives around climate change, resilience, growth, accessibility and transport options, and then safety. And Michaela's previous chair will know the prioritisation that was given to those and what came from that in terms of the prioritisation of that programme of work for the region that went through and into the National Land Transport Fund from this region's perspective. And resilience, particularly, in a huge amount of focus as a region, both from rural southern districts such as Waitomo or Tauranga, but also northern districts such as Thames Coromandel, where the impact of resilience struggling really started to become a problem for their communities and their economies, and they were really strong on that as a key topic for the region. Then moving to the Regional Public Transport Plan, the vision of that document is to enable a better Waikato by enhancing people's lives and shaping the future with outstanding transport solutions. And there are 7 objectives listed, and I won't read them out, but they broadly reflect the statements I made earlier on about the opening paragraphs of that document. So as a region and a regional council, we've got statements there that set out the programme of work that we're now currently delivering through the long-term plan, and we're advocating for on behalf of the region to government for funding. Any questions on that?
No, I think we're good. Welcome, Katarina online. Good to have you here.
So then if I move on then to what was included within the Regional Land Transport Plan, our bid to government for the 6-year period 2024 to 2030 was a total bid of about 5.9 billion. And the activity classes for that are listed, and I won't go through them in detail. We are required to also identify from that list significant activities, and we identified 30 in that plan in Appendix H, and they are improvement activities rather than services and maintenance, and they total 2 billion of that 6 billion. Some of them are highlighted on the map there.
Sorry, just to clarify, the $1 billion is not coming from NZTA, is it?
It's the total transport investment. So it's a combination of the local share and the agency contribution for local road projects, and then fully NZTA for state highway.
Across the whole region, yeah.
So when the National Land Transport Plan was issued for the 2024 to 2027 period, there was a commitment to 1.9 billion, and that was made up of 403 million for maintenance, 802 million for pothole prevention, 562 million for improvements, and 138 million for public transport. So that was issued some months later by NZTA, having assessed and taken on board all of the regional land transport plans around the country. Any questions on the national funding piece before I move on to the council funding piece?
Gary.
Just you went through them very fast to try and take in all those numbers. That's all. You know, there's a lot of data there, and you want questions, and I'm trying to go flat out. It's, you know, would it be good to have this paper beforehand so I could analyse some of that data?
Yeah, I mean, just noting this is just a starting point for the committee, so would welcome your analysis later on, but also acknowledge that, yeah, the presentation.
But if you want good questions, I need good data.
Yep, and yeah, okay, noted.
Yeah. Parking lot. So then broadly across all of transport business, these rounded numbers represent our budgets for this financial year. So a total of about 61.2 million, which is 56.2 million of direct costs, 3.5 of salaries and 1.5 of depreciation. That is funded by fares and other income of about 10 million, NZTA subsidy of 26-27 million, a number of targeted rates of about 22, and then some general rates funding and the uniform annual general charge, specifically for road safety, totaling about 2.2 million. So at its highest level, that's how we're funded. That's what we spend the money on.
Oh, just use your microphone, Ben.
Can I ask you about the targeted rates, the 22 million?
Of course. Yep.
Where does it come from? Who's it targeted to and who's paying?
I've got something on the differential model that you've moved to in terms of the regional PT rating in a moment. But there are also small amounts of targeted rates for stock truck effluent, and yeah, the majority of that is in this new regional rating model, which I'll go through in a moment.
Oh, use your microphone.
Sorry, it's hard to see, it's on. Targeted rates aren't necessary passenger fare box recovery.
Oh,
That's separate
different.
again from this.
That's the
Different.
top line. That's the top line.
Yep. So first off, the fares come off and then the rest is split.
I'll take you through that now.
Yep. All right. We just got another question from Keith.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Phil, can you just give us a quick breakdown on how the subsidy is got and apportioned?
I'll take
The
you through that in a
justification
moment.
behind it.
That's
I'll
coming.
take you through that in a moment. Got a couple of slides on that.
Okay, good.
Cool. Thank you. Ben, are you finished? Yep. Thank you.
So returning councillors and potentially new councillors will be aware that identified in the 2024 to 34 long-term plan and enacted from the 1st of July this year, we've moved to a new targeted approach, a targeted approach to collecting rates for all public transport across the region. Previously, we collected the rates for some districts and not others, and they were invoiced off there and paid generally off their general rate. The change gives us a sense of the total funding required to deliver the public transport networks that are identified for the first time. And there was a conversation and multiple rounds of engagement with our partners to get a sense of the best way of allocating those costs. So this is a slide that from the annual plan process this year, and it identifies the zones for the way that public transport rate is charged. And in effect, we have a weighted distribution model. Now, this also includes total mobility and community transport, which are now part of this targeted rate, where previously were under general rates. But for Hamilton, all properties pay a CV-based amount. And then for everywhere else, it is a set number, whether you are in a serviced or unserviced area. And then there is a weighting between that blue central Waikato area and the regional Waikato wider area. The urban areas in the main are counted as serviced if a bus runs through that community. But otherwise, the areas between the towns are counted as unserviced. So we're in the first year of that model, and it's underway. We'll know by the time of the next LTP what the impacts of that are on the way forward. But the model itself seems to have landed well, and I don't believe have had any real feedback on that from the community.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Can I just acknowledge the process as well that we did go through initially? We had feedback from the community that it wasn't quite fit for purpose, so we went out again. And I believe that what we've landed on, meets all those criteria that we went out with. And it was also fantastic to have staff and councillors engage with our territorial authorities as well. and get their weighing in and their opinions on what would work moving forward. So yeah, overall a really good process. Yeah, so thanks to all those around the table who contributed to the robust what we've ended up with. And yeah, thanks to staff as well. I think, as you say, it is working really well.
So this is your slide, Keith. How is transport funded? We have a relationship with NZTA as the distributor of the funds within the National Land Transport Fund. Every district, every region has a financial assistance rate set, and that is used to co-fund a lot of the activities that we do. The NZTA piece comprises revenue from fuel excise duty, road user charges, vehicle and driver registration licensing, their value, their funds from disposing of land related to state highway construction, as well as road tolling. The local share is funded by rates, either depending on which part of our business, by the general rate or by our targeted rates. At 59.41 is our financial assistance rate from NZTA, and it's probably the most common across the country, but there are some that particularly smaller, more isolated communities often have a higher funding assistance rate, and Coromandel may be an example of that. So we get different amounts of funding for different things that we do. Community transport is currently not subsidised and is funded, yes, and is funded by that targeted rate. Total mobility operations and total mobility wheelchair hoists and ramp installations are funded at 60% FAR by government. And the use of the hoist is funded at 100%. When we claim, we have to claim for different things, just to give you an example. Public transport, and this is the question that we get every single time, the total contract cost minus the fares becomes the sum that is then split between our share and the central government share. And in the case of all of our bus services, it's this 59.41. So total cost minus private share, which is effectively fares for public transport plus advertising. And then the balance is split in that way. And we claim that monthly from NZTA via Vince's team and a system that we have with the agency.
Well, have you got a slide that shows the further breakdown where the interregional or just say the Morrinsville bus, Matamata Piako into Hamilton, it's further split, if I've got it right. So yeah, you can just for those who.
Yeah. So yeah.
So when you've got the routes going from Hamilton out into the rural districts, that's further split contribution from Hamilton and the other districts. Is that still happening? Can you just explain if that's still the case?
So in terms of the local share split, that has been replaced by the regional rating. So with the regional rating, we do no longer invoice district council separately. So it's all being rated by WRC. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but previously it was that. So anything that started in one district, went through another and ended in another, yeah, was equally shared.
So Phil, whether it's digressing or not, has the regional rating shown that the administration costs have been slashed through lack of having to do all this other breakdowns?
I don't believe we ever claimed there would be a significant saving.
It may not have been the case, but $80,000 administration surcharges from region to Waikato district multiplied by right around the region, that was a couple of $1 million or more in admin charges. I would hope that has been reduced, and if not, could we have something in future to tell us what that really has, if it's transpired?
Thank you. Provide that.
We'll add that to the parking lot. Thanks, Noel. I've got Keith, then Jen online, and Gary R.
Thanks, Angela. Just see Te Hui as a separate thing. Just can you just explain to me the like the little buses that go from Te Hukaroa and the health buses. Do we subsidise that, or is it a terminology that I don't understand? So
Yeah, so that would
That's
be
the
covered
current-
by, do you mean the health shuttles?
health shuttles.
Yeah, so that would be classed as community transport. So that is, correct me if I'm wrong down the back. So that is partnered with maybe New Zealand Health. And then we have the grant, the fund that people can apply to for funding to help them as well deliver those services.
And just to add to that, there is at the moment collaboration with the DHB for their patients getting from Tokoroa to the hospital. That might have been what you were referring to there, Keith, Councillor Keith. There's a memorandum of understanding there, but it is not rates funded. It is a commercial agreement between the operator and the DHB or Te Whatu Ora. We ticket any public transport users that are wanting to ride on that service, and then that revenue goes on to the DHB. But that arrangement will be coming to an end, I believe, within the next 6 to 9 months.
If I can just come in again, Angela. So I just would like to highlight, like when Robbie and I were doing our campaign trail, the more extenuated areas are really, really concerned about health services and ability to get them. And I think it's morally wrong that little communities have to basically get donations and public funding for a basic requirement. So I just really think we need to think in terms of it's a must-have, not a want service, and it should be funded through this mechanism rather than through people having to make donations.
There was a really interesting story shared at the Regional Transport Committee yesterday around somebody trying to travel from the Coromandel to Hamilton Hospital, having to catch an intercity bus to Auckland, and then another intercity bus or the train to Hamilton, and talking about 8 hours to get to visit family or to attend. So it's a huge issue.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Jen online.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. One for you, Phil, is when will the next round of the Community Transport Fund open? Noting we just increased the level of that fund last year.
Imminently.
Awesome, awesome. And the other part is that just thinking really big picture, as you know, I'm highly frustrated by our inability to actually be agile in how we put buses on, and that is largely because of this funding model. I would like to see either the regional sector, Transport SIG, put forward some thinking and a proposal for how this could be done differently so that councils one day do have a lot more autonomy over this while, you know, having a subsidy of sorts, as is normal in all countries that I know of. Or if not, then I would like our council, since you were saying what do we put forward for the agenda going forward, to have a good understanding of that so that we might be able to develop a position to advocate for. Because otherwise we're going to develop a really great public transport plan and have all these ideas, but we will always be bound by that match funding and the large inability to be agile. I mean, classic example is we now have an international airport in Hamilton again, and very little wriggle room for how to provide some kind of public transport to that. And I don't really want to wait till 2028, 29 or 30. So we could, do you see anything in the regional sector transport SIG towards that, or is developing a position something we might need to look at so that we can have a future here?
It's a constant discussion in the regional sector.
That's good.
I think we would all welcome a conversation by that new committee on how you might be able to, or we might all be able to identify some tools to help us achieve that.
Okay. And separate to that, just the very last point would be, we have community transport and we have the official bus services that are very formal in their contracts. Really keen to explore those joint venture opportunities, whether that's a separate category or tied in with the future of community transport, to allow private funding to assist our communities to upscale if we are still bound into this funding model in the meantime that hinders us. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's all.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Jen. Yep, good thoughts. Gary R.
I suppose I think I like some of what Jen is just saying there, and I think I looked at an earlier slide that you had, Phil, around building on existing systems, existing structures, and I think that's part of the problem, you know, that we actually need to rethink how it is and not build on existing stuff, because you're just adding new to old, and so it's about a rebuild. But my question I want to raise, just for clarity and make sure that I'm perfectly clear and everybody's clear on the funding side of it, the 51, 49% split is only on the 80% and 20% fee recovery. So in essence, the council is only subsidising $39 out of every 100. Is that correct?
Give or take. Give or take.
Yeah. Good question.
The role of increasing revenue by increasing patronage is something I'll come on to in a bit later as well.
Excellent, thank you. I've just got 4 more people. Mikhail, then Gary, that side, Noel, and then Chris Hughes.
Jennifer kind of said what I was going to say, just more on to Keith there. I mean, huge focus to increase that community transport because of what happened in Gabriel and especially up in Thames Coromandel, where they were pretty well stuck when State Highway 5 was closed. And it was a big focus on how we could extend the PT, but with partnerships, and that's what community transport is in those more rural communities where they've now got access through that fund as partnerships with it. So it is, we did increase it, as Jen said, so it was, you know, big thing.
Thank you. Just Phil, on that community transport one, I know we've got the policy currently at the moment. When would we be looking to see if that is, you know, still fits what the community needs?
So the community transport policy was framed up when that fund was first launched. It's timely that we have a review and we reset it based on the dollars that are now available, but also what we've learned over the last few years. So our work plan for 2026 is to bring you that policy to the new committee, and it's a council decision, but for you to engage in that policy and help reset that to make sure that its scale and its reach are correct based on what you want that fund to achieve.
Thank you. Right, Gary.
Recently, I've had calls from locals up in the Mercer area there. There's one lady that called me in particular that was just desperately trying to get to hospital, and the PTS system wasn't picking it up like with St John, but she was screaming out for the bus service to be extended to Mercer, for example. There's dead areas around that people, and you know, the little people you got to think of, that which backs what Keith and Mikhail were saying, is that those small rural areas need to be catered for, because there's people that are in desperate situations, no vehicle, health issues, and not able to get to their appointments at Middlemore or Waikato.
So we've also had multiple engagements with the person you're referring to. My last reply to her was that the changes that are proposed to the bus networks after the tendering process will provide much more service to her community. and will allow her to travel both north and south. So we've made some quite significant changes to the Northern Connector and some of the Route 44, which runs through currently from Pocono to Kohi, to pick up more of the people in those communities between Pocono and Te Kaupapa.
So thank you. Noel.
Thank you. A couple of points. If I can go to Trudy first. You made a comment in relation, I think it was community funding, is ceasing in 9 months. So I was concerned to hear that. So if something's ceasing in 9 months, what's coming in behind it to make sure that it continues funding? Someone give her a
Yeah, I've got a note of the speaking order, so yep, good to go.
Yeah. Oh, look, in response, Councillor Noel, just to clarify, it's a memorandum of understanding that Council and Te Whatu Ora have for this particular service. As I'd mentioned before, it is funded as a commercial service via NZ Health. Going forward, we've evaluated whether opening the offering to the public as well as the core primary service of being for patients is working, and it hasn't actually been sort of that successful in that model. So it's not ceasing to exist. Te Whatu Ora will continue on. It's just simply the offering to the public to also take that service at the same time will fall away. So sorry, just to clarify that.
second point, the issue about the service out to Hamilton Airport. Is that being seriously considered? Because there's a hell of a lot of fish hooks. Picking, is it around the town bus service, picking up everybody's bags and then making their way up to the airport? And so how many hours before do they have to get on the bus to actually get to the airport before they fly? And if it was, commercially viable, surely wouldn't somebody be in there already? And so are we looking to subsidise another service from the ratepayers? So a whole lot in there, but are we seriously looking at this or not?
And that's the question. So we did trial a flex service to the airport, and it didn't end up proving itself and was stopped. About a month later, the announcement of international flights came out, and we've had inquiry after inquiry ever since. You're absolutely correct that from a passenger perspective, you want a fast direct service to wherever it is you want to go. If you are an employee at the airport, and they are a huge amount of the market for an airport service, they would want it to go as close to their homes as possible. So the challenge is achieving both. The routing for a service to the airport is included within the future bus contracts, and it aligns with the services that are proposed for the new Peacocks area, which are arterial based and would use the new Cobham Drive Bridge to come across and into central Hamilton. The stopgap option of trying to divert the Te Awamutu service to the airport sounds great, but every person who travels to Te Awamutu then has to do a loop of the airport car park, and that just adds time and complexity to all of those passengers. So that's absolutely the nub of the issue: is airport services need to be a whole range of things to a whole range of people. And yeah.
Awesome. No, good questions, Noel. Yeah, we're constantly inundated as well, as Phil said. Chris Hughes.
Thanks, Angela. Couple of questions. One's just point of explanation, please. Probably for Gary and the others around here. The government's set mandated air recovery levels now. You're coming to that, thank you. So that's my first question. And the second one is following up from Noel, really, with Hamilton Airport. It's a huge employment area now, as you've alluded to. But what discussions have we actually had with the airport? Because they're a separate business in their own right, and I would have thought it was in their best interests. They're looking at a funding model where they contributed, and I go back to my earlier thoughts that these things are best run not by the regional council, but by individual operators. They are motivated to try and make it pay. We won't. There's no motivation if we're funding it 100%, because if you've got an individual operator as an owner-driver, he will go there and generate a business, set up a business model which is actually going to support service going to the airport and servicing all the businesses out there. I'm just encouraging the council not to go down that path of providing the service, but to encourage the Hamilton Airport Company to be doing that as a standalone operation with themselves, and also the many tenants that they now have out there who've contributed to it. And maybe a targeted rate of those people if you want to get involved in it, but I certainly don't think that's something which we should be doing as a citywide thing. I think it should be more targeted for employment area. No, absolutely.
Yep, good. Thank you, Chris.
I'm pretty sure the airport will want you to keep using your car so they can keep collecting your money from the parking.
The point is, we had the discussion. Like, you know, they're mercenaries, but they've got a captive market. They want to get people there. They want them to catch planes on time. They want the planes to run on time. The best way to do that is to have a public service that meets that demand.
Thank you, Chris.
You go.
I've got a couple more.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Liz. Okay, cool. Back to Keith and then Chair Warren.
Yeah, just following up on your comment when we're talking about the health shuttles and that sort of thing, Phil. And it's coming through, and I concur with it. Buses don't solve the problem. A regular service doesn't solve the problem. We need to be nimble. And if we look at other options, most towns have a courier wagon go through their town every hour. And so there may be a hybrid of courier plus transport. Not big buses, just a 9-seater or something like that, and just get people. And also the Uber type thing where you can just dial up, say, I've got to be in Hamilton for an appointment. Can you pick us up? So I think if we're fixated on increasing the bus route regularity, we won't solve the problem because these people don't have appointments that fit a 9 o'clock or a 5 o'clock pickup.
Yep. Those are all topics that are discussed all the time, and the model of the delivery of services to try and make it as efficient and as effective as it can be is the balancing factor in on that. And on demand is a really viable option, and it is now for the first time being funded, co-subsidised by NZTA for Timaru. But that's come about through many years of work to achieve that outcome, and it's something now that as a model is potentially expandable to other areas. So all very valid, and it's a conversation that I've had with Councillor Hughes and many others many times, is how do you make public transport attractive, easily reachable and accessible and affordable, and that's the balance we have to find. We also, sorry, just expanding on that slightly, and we'll talk about networks in a moment, but the idea that all of our services run into central Hamilton is a model that is changing. So there is a network around Taupo, which doesn't try to become a shuttle to Hamilton. There will end up being a network around the Hauraki towns and up into the South Coromandel that will be the same. And we're starting to see a network starting to form around the Pocono and through and into Auckland, south, as I've mentioned, as well as north. So this is a new model for us. Raglan, Matamata and others may get a town service. Cambridge get town services over time. And that's a change to the model, whether it's an add-on or whether it's a change to the model that's trying to make sure that we're providing a service to the people that are asking for it, and it's relevant to the trip that they want to make, rather than doing 80 or 90 or 100k trips on every service.
Yeah, thanks for that, Phil. And I think that's really important to get that local voice as well, now that we're regionally rating. Yeah, so that PT subcommittee will be extra important, as will all of your voices around the table as well, because you'll hear different things from your communities too. Warren and then Chris.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, I think there's some really good points coming out of here, and they need to feed back into our own transport committee, so that that's where the discussion should be being had. But what I would like to see, Phil, if it's doable, and and I certainly believe it is that just so councillors have an understanding on realistically when funding can be sought and timeframes for these sorts of additional services being discussed and everything. We know it's relative to the government funding cycles and that sort of thing. So I think it's critical that councillors understand that potentially there will be nothing new till at least 2027, or so that we've got a clear idea. It can be articulated back to those community members that are raising it. Yes, it's on the radar, but look, we can't do anything, until government funding matches, in that space. So I think we need to be totally transparent and totally honest. So that, hey, look, these are the dates and these are the cycles we work within, and there's nothing we can do in between.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, and we will share the program with you in the new year.
Yeah, good points. Chris Hughes.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Look, I'd just like to go back to the point that Keith made before. We have got this community fund at the moment, and I guess I'm just firing it to you, Phil, to make sure that we've got very good and strong probity systems around that fund, because most of you will be aware that it was a major fraud perpetuated against ACC for something similar not so long ago. $1.6 million disappeared in a couple of weeks. I would hate to be associated with that as a member of this organisation. So I want to be assured that we have got extremely strong systems, checks and balances around any disposition or disbursement of funds from that community funding.
Yep, I believe there are checks in place, but we can take you through that in full detail as part of that policy review. Yeah.
Excellent. Ben.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on.
Just picking up on Warren's point about funding coming through in 2027, 28, we disappear in 2028. There's an absolute stop on regional councils. So some of this planning may not be us, but mayors that make these decisions, or a commissioner. So I just point that out. Secondly, I looked at your future bus services analysis, and it's very well done. It's got feedback about what the districts want, but they weren't asked how much they're willing to pay. So everyone wants more in their feedback, more regional services, but again, the payment thing. And I'm also concerned that the community transport is 100% WRC funded, and whether that will survive a reorganisation process. Comments?
Yeah. So I've got something on the future networks later on in the pack, so we can talk about that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, good points. Right, we'll move on.
Okay, so just to finish off this far rate slide pack, and I don't really want to dwell on this because there'll be a much more of a conversation on it separately, but the Te Huia financial assistance rate are different from those for public transport, and that's because it's funded as a trial. So currently, we started pre-2024 with 75.5% from the Crown, 70% 24-25, and we're currently at 60% with a fixed contribution via invoice from Waikato District Council, and then the blue boxes should say HCC, which has grown over time. Now, it hasn't grown by us rating more, it has grown by us using the reserve. So the conversation that this feeds into is how does that change in the future scenarios? I don't really want to dwell on that now, but I just wanted you to know that the financial assistance rate for Te Huia are different from those for bus. There was a question around private share. The agency, under the direct instruction of a statement within the government policy statement, which says that public transport authorities will actively work towards increasing public transport private share by 30 June 27, setting targets every year. This includes operating within approved funding of continuous programs, reviewing services that are delivering low fare box, and considering appropriate fares. As a result of that, the sector and several meetings with the minister led to every region being given a series of targets for private share, which is a combination of not just fares, but also advertising. For the train, it's the cafe revenue. and for other things, you know, potentially if we were an owner of property, the lease, the money that we get from leasing property, maybe as a concession for a cafe or something, would also count. So 2023-24, our private share actual was 9.9. 24-25, the agreed share was 13.3, and we achieved 15.2. The agreed share for 25-26 was 15.6, and I'm looking at Vince. We achieved that, I believe. And our agreed share for this financial year, 26-27, is 18.4. So you can see that the increases in fares, which we have had in 2024, a 20% increase, in 2025, another 11.4% increase, have been intended to achieve these targets as we've gone. As part of the annual plan process, particularly your early February conversation, we'll be talking about the potential options for fare increases for 2026 as well. So this is a journey of us achieving these targets based on and I mentioned that we have an RLTP that has to be consistent with the government policy statement. What that means for us is around this obligation to achieve these targets.
Excellent. Noel.
So just on that, I know historically the Te Amuru, Cambridge, Raglan, Huntly buses were up to 40% at one stage or close to it on airbox recovery. And Hamilton was down below 5% occasion. So what I'm concerned about is that those 4 bus services, and I'm not up to date, and I'll accept that, with the current situation, whether others have or whether there's been a slippage. But my understanding is those 4 bus services still provide a very high recovery rate compared to Hamilton. And the cross, not necessarily cross subsidy, that's probably the wrong word, but the districts providing the high level of achievement there, whereas Hamilton is not. So I would like to see some understanding of that provided to us, whether it's right now or whether it's in the future, and how we can get Hamilton to perform closer to that level. It's my understanding it's not. So if I've got that wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. But I don't want the districts paying, for Hamilton. It's got to be a bit more equitable. Because you can't have it both ways,
And I guess on that, Noel, is the that move to getting more efficient services within Hamilton that actually meet the needs of Hamiltonians, and those meandering bus routes, you know, making changes to those as well. So then we can bring all the performance up to where it needs to be. But yeah, I do recall you brought that up before. So yeah, good point.
Just don't want to think that everything's rosy and that we're all doing 15.6 when some of way ahead and Hamilton's dragging the chain.
Yeah, I guess
not that
now
I'm trying to pick on Hamilton, Chris.
No, of course not. But I guess now we are just a regional view with the regional rating. It is, and the devil is always in the detail. And yep, that data, as Gary likes to say, you know, does tell a big story. So yep, that information will come to you with enough time for you to analyse it moving forward. Keith, and then I've got Ben and then Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Just going back to the Te Huia pricing mechanism, and probably relates to this. Phil, can we just have an understanding of how flexible NZTA is in its funding model? Because I've been involved in logistics, so I'm pretty familiar with moving bits and pieces around. So if we would have rail buses, different model than we've got at the moment, would they consider that, or is our Te Huia funding peculiar to Te Huia funding? So, or Te Huia operation, because to me it's logistics and moving bits and pieces, but that train is really expensive. But a rail bus, which they use in different parts of the world, are much more nimble and much more flexible, that you can, you know, turn them off, that sort of thing quicker.
So a general statement. Te Huia is funded as a trial, and it has a very specific set of funding percentages and a specific set of measures that it is tested against that relate specifically to it being a trial. There's the conversation more broadly is that as part of the future of the train, a decision about what is required to make it the same as all other public transport effectively tests whether it can achieve the same funding relationships and the same outcomes as are required by all other types of public transport in the medium and longer term. That's the bigger conversation that we'll be having separately. But that hopefully just gives you some broad perspective.
Thank you. Ben.
Yeah, just very briefly, the private share has doubled effectively between 23 and what it's going to be in 26, 27. What's happened to patronage in that time?
Got a slide on that.
Okay.
Oh, good question. Chris.
Can you just confirm these are the Te Huia only private share targets?
This is the regional target. This is for all public transport regional.
And Te Huia is included in there?
Yes.
If anything, Te Huia is exceeding its targets.
So we carry on. So we've got some data now. You'd asked for some data. Are you feeling fresh to start going into this?
Yep. So next bit's quite meaty, and so we can either have a break now, or we can just carry on. Should we have a 5-minute break now? Okay. Let's make it 8 minutes, and we'll come back at 10:02 for those online. 8 minutes.
Okay. Bye. See you soon.